Welcome everyone to Movie Talk. Today we're going to be doing a ranking of Christopher Nolan's movies, including his last movie, Oppenheimer. First of all, I need to say that if you haven't watched all of Christopher Nolan's movies, please go watch it because I'm going to tell spoilers about practically every movie. So go watch it and form your own opinion. And do your ranking and then compare to mine. That's a bit fun to do. So let's go right to the ranking. In last position, my least favorite movie is Insomnia. Insomnia is the only movie that Christopher Nolan has written. All of his other movies he's wrote the script, but this one he hasn't done. I don't think the script is particularly the worst part of the movie. I think it's fairly well written and fairly well directed, but it's just a story that doesn't catch me. I want to pass through this movie because I don't really find it interesting. It makes me sleepy. I know, yes, insomnia, sleep, don't sleep. Ha ha ha. Very funny. I know the joke isn't good, but that's my opinion. I don't really like this movie. It's my least favorite because I don't find it very interesting, the story. It's well acted, of course. Al Pacino, Robin Williams, and Hilary Swank. That's not a particularly bad thing. The acting, but it's just a story that doesn't catch me. So let's pass through this. I want to go to the best movies. In 11th position, there is Dunkirk. Dunkirk is one of the most controversial movies of Christopher Nolan, right up with Interstellar. I've gone very low with this movie because it's a story also as Insomnia that doesn't catch me. I don't really like the story of Dunkirk. It's a story about the war, the Second World War, and I didn't like it because there is nothing that we can have an emotional connection to someone or something that is happening like other war movies like Saving Private Ryan. Let's take that for example. We have our group of people and we want them to be successful on their mission, and not just on the mission, but we want them to survive. Other war movies like All Quiet on the Western Front, 1917, we want our protagonists to survive, and that's no difference with Dunkirk. But Dunkirk doesn't show us and doesn't makes us connect with any character. We have our protagonist in Dunkirk, but it's like he's not even there. It's a person that could be anyone, could be any person in the world. In the world, not really, but in that beach. I know that that is the purpose of the movie, but it's a fucking shit of a purpose. That's my view. I know that's what Christopher Nolan was meant to do. I know he did want to make us feel like that, and I know that the movie isn't about a protagonist, isn't about a emotional connection, but yes, about the war and the things that war does to people. I know that that was the point of Christopher Nolan, but that's something that I didn't like in Dunkirk. That's why it's right down here. I didn't watch Dunkirk on cinema. I watched it in my house, in my TV. So I didn't have the experience of the IMAX or the cinema, the experience of the visual effects and the sound design and the cinematography and the soundtrack. I didn't have any of that, so that's probably one thing that made me feel a little bit worse about this movie and rate it a little bit lower than probably it should be. But there are other movies of Christopher Nolan that I will mention that I've also watched at home, and I missed the part of the visual effects and things like that. But it worked because the story is good. In 10th position is Following. Following is Christopher Nolan's directorial debut, and I think it's one of the best debuts I've ever seen in all of cinema history. With such an incredible low amount of money, such a low budget. Like, of course, we have to talk about this every time we talk about this movie. Everyone that talks about Following needs to talk about this aspect because it's the most impressive one, of course. Making a movie with such a low budget, $6,000, is such a big achievement and such a hard thing to do, because making a movie is something so huge and so big. You need to have so much people. You need to have actors. You need to have director of photography. You need to have sound people. You need to have a composer. You need to have people who clean the stage. You need to have people who deliver the coffee. You need to have people to clean your lenses. You need to have a lot of people. And in this movie, I'm pretty sure there wasn't a lot of people. So what Christopher Nolan did is something really impressive. But now talking about the movie is actually really good. The script of the movie is really amazing. The direction of the movie is really good. There are some things that we see that Christopher Nolan was an amateur, like this. That was his first movie, so we can see that this is the first time he's doing it. And there are some times that we see like, this isn't that very good, but we elevate that because that's his first movie. That's a directorial debut, and it's a really good one. One thing that I didn't like was the camera, not because it's in black and white or because of the aspect ratio, but because the camera was actually really bad. So that's something that we have to. Yeah, we know that he didn't have the resources, but if you don't have the resources, you don't do it. In this case, he did it, and it was very good, but the camera is actually very scuffed. In ninth position, Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises, it was a movie that I really wasn't with high expectations, because I was really little when Dark Knight Rises went to the cinema, so I didn't catch the hype. So I watched it at home like 1-2 months ago, and I was really not expecting much, because I've seen a lot of people talk badly about this movie, and they say that it isn't such a great movie. It's one of the worst movies of Christopher Nolan, and I've seen in some people cases that they say that that's Christopher Nolan's worst movie. And I think that's really stupid. I think that doesn't make any sense. It's a really good movie with such a great sound design. It's such a really good end of story for Batman and the trilogy. It's really good, and I think that it deserves a little bit more of recognition. Don't get me wrong, it's the worst movie of the Batman trilogy. I prefer Batman Begins and Dark Knight, of course, as Dark Knight Rises, but it's not bad. It's not a bad movie. I know that the plot twist doesn't make a lot of sense, and it can make a lot of sense, but it's a bit disappointing because everyone liked Bane more than Miranda Tate, and that's just a bit disappointing because Bane was such a better character than Miranda. But the ending of the story of Batman is really great. One thing that it isn't great is the ending of the movie with Alfred looking at Bruce and Christopher Nolan showing Bruce. If it was just Michael Caine doing the sign that he understood that Bruce Wayne was there, but Christopher Nolan didn't show Bruce Wayne, it would be so much better. But yeah, in general, it's a really great movie with good action scenes. The script is well written. The actors are really good. The soundtrack of Hans Zimmer is very good. So I don't see why people hate so much on this movie. Tom Hardy as Bane is one of the most funny and interesting things that I've ever watched in cinema. That voice is a bit strange, and that's why a lot of people don't like much about that movie. But I think it's funny, and I don't find any problem with that. That doesn't get me out of the movie. I don't really mind. In 8th position, Batman Begins. So we've just gone through Dark Knight Rises, so we're going to be from the last of the series to the first of the series, Batman Begins. Batman Begins isn't much different of Dark Knight Rises. They are so much apart in terms of time, because Batman Begins was in 2005 and Dark Knight Rises I don't really remember, but 2012 if I'm not mistaken. But the movie quality isn't very far from one another. The origin of Batman in Batman Begins is actually the best that any other superhero movie has ever done. Marvel did try to copy the Christopher Nolan style in Batman Begins to make all of their other movies, but it didn't work because Batman Begins is still one of the greats in the superhero movies. Like, apart from Dark Knight, there are only other 1, 2, 3 movies in the maximum that are better than Dark Knight Begins, and that's because the Christopher Nolan direction and the Christopher Nolan script is so well done. They found the perfect guy for the perfect job for the perfect movie. To make a Batman movie. Christopher Nolan was a fan of Batman, and that's something that really helped in his case. He made a different thing from Tim Burton in the 80s. Tim Burton was more of the comic books and made the movies more like the comic books, but you can't do something from the comic books all the time. It won't work in the movies. And the approach that Christopher Nolan gave to Batman was something new and something really well done. In general, I would give the same rating to Batman Begins to Batman Dark Knight Rises, but I prefer Batman Begins as a movie because the origin is better than the ending. In 7th position, Tenet. Tenet was released in 2020, 3 years ago, my god. And a lot of people didn't like Tenet and hated on Tenet because it was released during the pandemic and the people didn't want Christopher Nolan to reopen the cinemas because it was dangerous and blah 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 blah. So in 2020 there was a lot of negative thoughts about Tenet just because of that exterior thoughts of the things that aren't for the movie. Like when you're critiquing, when you're reviewing a movie, you need to talk about what is in the movie, not what is outside. Like if Christopher Nolan was someone like Lars von Trier that is completely controversial, you would say that Inception is a bad movie. You would say that Memento is a horrible movie. No, there are still great movies in bad people, but you can't hate on the movies just because of the people and because of those situations. So Tenet is a really great movie. There are flaws, of course, like the sounds of Tenet, sound mixing. It was something that people really commented on that because it is actually very strange to hear people talk on Tenet. Not only talk, but everything in the movie that is based on sound. It's very strange, but there are things in the movie that are so much better and reserve recognition, like the soundtrack of Ludwig Göransson. The soundtrack of Tenet is the second best of any Christopher Nolan's movie. Only loses for Interstellar because that's just on another level, but the soundtrack is superb. The directing and the experience of the Tenet is such a good experience. There are, as I said, flaws like the sound and that women that appears in the first part of the movie that is talking about the entropy and how things work. But in general, the Tenet movie is not based on that. It's not just that scene. Like there is a lot of exposition in Tenet, but it is hidden when we go to the action scenes. The last action scene when there is two teams, that's just mind-blowing. Yes, it is confusing, but it's good in the same. In 6th position, The Prestige. The Prestige was a movie that I got really confused about. I wasn't expecting that much of Prestige. I had seen people talk about The Prestige and the plot twist. I didn't know the plot twist because every time someone talked about the plot twist, I didn't want to hear. I didn't want to be spoiled. But I knew that there was a plot twist, and the plot twist caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. The Prestige is one of the best, if not the best. No, I don't think it's the best, but one of the best, like top 3 best Christopher Nolan scripts. Any other than that, there are some things that I don't like in the Prestige, but in the general, the movie is really, really, really well made. There are some things that I don't find interesting, I think that's the word, because the script is really good, it's perfect. I think it's perfect, the script. There are any flaws, but it's not the script that needs, but cinema is not just about scripts, because if it was, we would just read books. It's the least Christopher Nolan movie I've ever seen. There aren't any of that stuff that you would think in Christopher Nolan, like messing around with linear story and time in general, and those marks that Christopher Nolan makes on his movies. The Prestige doesn't have any of that. So maybe that's partially why I don't put it higher in this list. It's because I don't feel like it's a Christopher Nolan movie. The same thing with Insomnia. It doesn't feel like a Christopher Nolan movie, but The Prestige is so much better than Insomnia. In 5th position, Interstellar. Well, Interstellar is definitely the most controversial Christopher Nolan movie ever, and probably will be for all of his life for Christopher Nolan. Interstellar is an exceptional movie. There are flaws, everyone knows that there are, especially when it comes to making people feel connected with the character of Matthew McConaughey, that I forgot the name, Cooper, yes, Cooper, and his daughter in when she's old. When Murphy is old and there is the re-encounter, Christopher Nolan really lacks some emotion in the scene. We've already watched the movie, and we've seen so much emotional scenes with Matthew McConaughey crying when he sees that it is Murphy's anniversary, the same anniversary that he said that he would come back. Cooper, not Matthew McConaughey. Forget about the Matthew McConaughey character. There is that scene of love transcends the dimensions of time and space, and that will make sense in the movie, in the actual movie, as a fiction movie. That makes sense further on when going to the last part of the movie. But Interstellar is all about making that feel real. They hired the physicist Kip Thorne to make things feel real, and they actually do feel real, because a lot of those things that appear on the board, on the green board, and all of the physics of the movie, the black hole, all of that is made by a professional in physics. All of that is made by a Nobel Prize winner of physics. And that's something that Interstellar was relying on. It was on accuracy of the real world. And when there is the word of love transcends the dimensions of time and space, we just completely feel lost in the movie, because it is about the story or it is about reality. And of course it is about the story, but Christopher Nolan makes us feel that that is real. It wants us to make feel that that is real, that Interstellar is completely accurate. And when he says that, it's just something that it feels off the movie. But putting that apart, it's just everything in the movie else is perfect. Like when the black hole appears, I think it's one of the most remarkable scenes of movie history. I think it's the most remarkable scene in Christopher Nolan's filmography. I didn't see it on an IMAX, even on a theater, and that's something that I really wish I could have seen. I was really young at the time. I think Interstellar is from 2014. In 2014, I was 8 years old, so yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But I really would like to watch on an IMAX, on a cinema, Interstellar, because it's all about the experience. Hans Zimmer's soundtrack in Interstellar is the best soundtrack in any Christopher Nolan movie, in my opinion. There ain't any other soundtrack that can reach even the toes of the Interstellar soundtrack. It's so well done. The visual effects, the acting, Matthew McConaughey as an actor. Matthew McConaughey is one of the best actors of our generation. He really he really gives everything in the movie. Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine, it's all very good in the movie. It's all exceptional. Anne Hathaway, everyone is exceptional. But the script of the movie, yeah, maybe Interstellar would be better if Cooper died in the end. Just saying. In fourth position, Oppenheimer. So I'm recording this video one day after watching Oppenheimer, and this may be just because of the emotions of watching the Oppenheimer movie on an IMAX. When I first started thinking about Oppenheimer, I considered it to be in third position, but then I started thinking a little more, and I think the other movie deserves more than Oppenheimer. I don't think Oppenheimer is a perfect movie, and I'm pretty sure that the other three movies that are in front of Oppenheimer are generally perfect. I'm not going to be talking about much about Oppenheimer, because I've already made a review. You can go check it. I will put it in the description of the video. In third position, The Dark Knight. Well, The Dark Knight is just the best superhero movie in the history. I don't think any other movie will reach what Dark Knight reached. It's not just because of Christopher Nolan, but the timing of The Dark Knight was the perfect timing of any other superhero movie, because nowadays the studio makes the movie, not the director, and that doesn't allow great filmmakers to make their movies. Yes, we have seen people like James Gunn, Taika Waititi, Ryan Coogler make their movies, but then what we have Ryan Coogler making Black Panther Wakanda Forever, a meh movie. We have Taika Waititi making Thor Love and Thunder, that was yeah, a big disappointment. And then we have James Gunn that is on DC right now, and it will not go continue with Marvel. So we're going to be seeing his works on DC. In DC, what do we have? We don't have much. We've recently got The Flash. Yeah, I don't really like that movie. We've had the Matt Reeves The Batman. That was a really good movie, but it's a one-off. We have the Suicide Squad, but not James Gunn Suicide Squad. We have the 2016 Suicide Squad. So we can see that things aren't great for superhero movies. But The Dark Knight, on the other hand, it's a really good movie. The script of The Dark Knight, it's something that I will never forget, because in a superhero movie, to have the courage to make things like that, to make such difficult characters, especially the Joker. The Joker in this movie is the best Joker ever. Joaquin Phoenix or Jack Nicholson will never reach what Heath Ledger reached in this movie, and I think this is one of the best movies ever. We can see on IMDb that it's one of the most prestigious movies on IMDb, one of the best rated movies, and that's for a reason. The ending of this movie, the Dark Knight speech, the Gary Oldman speech, more like that, is something that you'll never forget. Every time I hear it, I get chills. Christopher Nolan actually destroyed a whole truck to make his scene on an IMAX. Amazing. In second position, Memento. So if you've seen the second position, you already know what's in first, and I'm going to say that this is very, very hard to choose what's the best movie, because maybe Memento is the best movie, but I think that the other movie is one that I prefer. It's my favorite. Maybe Memento is better, but I actually don't think so. Evaluating the two movies, like the quality of each one of them is very similar, but I think that Memento doesn't have a emotional connection that the other movie has. I'm not going to say the name of the other movie. I know you already know what movie it is, but I'm not going to say. But I think I put Memento on second because everything in the movie is basically perfect. The script, the performances, the editing. The film editing was not nominated for an Oscar in that year, and that's something that when I saw it, I got really surprised, because it's the thing that you actually see more of the movie. It's the film editing that you see that is more catching to our eyes, and the script as well. The script got a nomination, so thank you for that, I guess. But Memento is only Christopher Nolan's second movie. There are some decisions of direction things that we can see that are amateur, because Christopher Nolan didn't make a lot of things in that time. He only made the following before Memento, and then he made Memento, and so we can see that he's very much fresh to the movie industry. You can see that Christopher Nolan doesn't have a lot of experience, and that's why I think that Memento should be second. In first position, you already know Inception. So as I said, Inception and Memento, I think when we compare the quality of each movies, they are pretty much similar, but I think I prefer Inception because of the emotional connection that we have with the protagonists. Leonardo DiCaprio's character is very well developed in this movie. The scripts of Inception and Memento are pretty much on spot of perfection, and I think that in Inception he was more experienced than he was in Memento, so I think that's pretty much the reason that I think the Inception is better than Memento. Also, the Inception ending and all of the theories about the spinning top, that's something that Christopher Nolan was really fortunate to do. The ending of Interstellar, the music of Hans Zimmer, the soundtrack of Hans Zimmer going up, and then we see that he makes the spinning, and that's an open ending where we have to think if it stopped spinning or if it continued. And we not only have to think, but we kind of hope that it did stop. Sometimes we see a lot of movies with terrible ideas and a good movie, and sometimes we see really great ideas and a bad movie. This time we had a really great idea and a really great movie, and that's something that we gotta praise Nolan for. And so this is a video, guys. I know this video was actually a bit long. I wasn't expecting this video to be this long, but Christopher Nolan has a lot of movies and a lot of interesting debates to make about these movies. So I really like to talk about movies, and Christopher Nolan is the right filmmaker to talk about his movies. I said the word talk a lot of times in this video. Yeah, I'm going to end this video, so go watch these movies and form your opinion. I really hope that you have watched it, because I've probably given some spoilers. But that's it. I see you guys next time. Bye.